Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video is a Black Library review. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at one of the many publications brought out by a Black Library and giving you our thoughts on the book, audio drama, whatever it happens to be. Now, I will say that we will try to keep this review to as spoiler free as possible, though there will obviously be points where we talk about things happening in the book. We will try to keep away from saying any of the major plot points, so you can go and read this book for yourself. We'll just give you our thoughts on whether or not we think it is something you may be interested in. So we'll use this video to instruct you on maybe is this sort of going to be a book that you would like to see. With that all said and out the way, let's get cracking on. Let's talk a little bit about the book that we have reviewed this time. In today's Black Library review, we're going to be checking out the Wolftime book number 3 in the Dawn of Fire series by Games Workshop, which is pretty much detailing the Indomitus crusade across the galaxy led by Robute Guilliman. Now, this is, like I said, book 3, and this one is called The Wolftime and is written by Thorpe. And if you do listen to the audio version, like I do, I love to listen to audios while I'm painting, hobbying, editing on the computer as well, or indeed doing the dishes or something else around the house. This one is narrated by John Banks, like the rest of the series has been, which is fantastic. John Banks does a great job at bringing the characters to life. I really enjoy his narration. It's clean, crisp, enjoyable. But let's get cracking on. Let's talk about the story. Book 3. I'm really enjoying this series. I'm catching up on a lot of series this year. I think is going to be my big goal. And so, our story. The Indomitus Crusade has brought the Emperor's vengeance to thousands of star systems across the galaxy. The fleets and armies underneath the leadership of the Primarch returned Robute Guilliman fight for the survival of humanity against the forces of the Chaos Gods. But the traitors and the heretics are not the only foe looking to destroy the rule of terror. Now, this is, I think, the most interesting part of this story. I think, we know that obviously, Chaos ripped the galaxy in half, but they're by far not the only power in the galaxy, and this is a book that's starting to sort of show the other powers. Xenos prey on the human worlds in numbers not seen for millennia. Worst amongst them are the rampaging orcs, whose migration conquests threaten to reverse many of the gains of Fleet Primus, forcing people to have to, backtrack and deal with these orcs behind them. And their throaty bellows carry a name not heard in years, which is sort of, I guess, the reason why people are so worried, which is the name of Destruction Made Flesh, the bestial warlord without peer, Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka. That is the Beast of Armageddon. Now, in the midst of this brutal tide is Fenris, the world of the Space Wolves. Now, depleted by ever greater demands on their warriors, let's not forget, just before, I guess, the big sort of changes to the galaxy, we obviously had Magnus go and attack Fenris and all that sort of stuff, so we had like big wars for the Space Wolves, but called upon by the Legion Breaker, as they refer to him, Guilliman, the Wolves of Fenris face a momentous decision. Grimnar and his councillors must choose whether their fate is to ally themselves with an ancient rival. The Space Wolves are always sort of one of the ones to question all the other legions, all the other chapters of Space Marines. They don't, they have no successors. They don't take on, the Codex like a lot of other chapters did. Grimnar and his councillors that have to sort of make this decision, do they ally themselves with Guilliman, or do they accept that maybe this is the Wolftime and await the return of their own Primarch Leman Russ, who will lead the Valka Fenrika in their last final fight. But that is the story. And so, first of all, this book's purpose, it introduces us to the Space Wolves in the new setting of Warhammer 40k. It shows us their reactions to the return of both the Primarch Robute Guilliman, the creation of the Primaris Marines, their sort of views on the galaxy, on the unnumbered suns and all of that as well. And in general, just sort of, getting their reaction to all these events that have happened in the galaxy, all the sort of things that have happened post the major sort of events that led to, Abaddon ripping open the galaxy and sending the warp across half the galaxy. Now, this is really interesting because the Space Wolves are this fiercely independent legion of Marines. They really challenge all the views of others. They are, quite unique in that they're very centralized from their homeworld. They're not sort of used to picking up recruits. You know, being part of Fenris is so much more a part of the Space Wolves than it is for any other chapter. Like, it is so important that they're from Fenris, and this is a really interesting part of the story. Now, obviously, like I said in the sort of plot line of the story, the rise of the orcs and indeed like looking at other threats besides chaos is really something they're trying to showcase within this story. It gets uplifted, you know, and becomes, you know, a major part showing that, like, no, these are other big threats. It's not just Imperium versus chaos, it is Imperium versus everyone else, and these everyone else are coming for the Imperium just as chaos is, and, you know, they're also wanting to fight chaos as well. But central to all of this, and really the thread that keeps the book and has all these parts of Space Wolves, orcs, and all of this, tying it all in, we have that the events of book 2 starting to give us a central plot line that everything is flowing around, which is the Gate of Bones, obviously book 2 in the series that we've just done a review on the other day. This gives us the central point of the Cardinal Bucaris and indeed the giant warp weapon that the traitors tried to use, and this is the central sort of point of the plot line, which is really cool. Like, it's nice now to have that central point. I think that's going to carry on through the series, and I've just started the next book. I haven't got very far into it, but I'm quite excited for where this is going to go. I like this, you know, having this central thread to the story now. And so this story really introduces a new main character to us, and that is Gaius, the son of Russ. Now, obviously, he doesn't refer to himself as a Space Wolf to begin with. He will want to become a Space Wolf. I think is his storyline over the whole thing. He wants to become, you know, part of the Space Wolves. He's Primaris Marine. He hasn't, I guess, lived the life that Space Wolves do. He hasn't tried and tested himself on Fenris. He hasn't done all these things that the aspirants that do become Space Wolves have. And it's this odd sort of place, his story throughout, because while he's delivering these, you know, way to make new Space Marines, and indeed the Primaris Marines after him will indeed be from Fenris, and they'll, you know, take the trials that a Space Wolf would to become a Marine. It's this first group of what they soon call themselves the First Wolves, and Gaius's First Wolves, that they won't actually be ever sort of like Space Wolves. And his whole story arc throughout the story is trying to show that I am as much a Space Wolf as any other Space Wolf here on Fenris. Now, there are certainly, I guess, other secondary characters throughout the story as well. We have Murdiah and Gilliman taking part as well. Colquhoun and other of the Custodes are joining back, and indeed Custodes we recognise from the Gate of Bones. And of course, you know, you see like Niall Stormcaller, Aryak Rockfist, and, you know, Logan Grimnar and all that as well. And there's even some humans in there, which is pretty cool. But Gaius, without a doubt, is the main character we follow throughout the course of the story. And so what does change about our main character over the course of the story, though? Like I said, it is Gaius trying to prove himself as Space Wolf, and at part of the story where he's sort of unarmored and that, he gets in a bit of a spat with another Space Wolf that sort of kicks, I guess, his main part of the story, and interlocks a lot of the different parts, as a spat with a firstborn Space Wolf, a old Marine Space Wolf, as you will, and he effectively jumps out of Thunderhawk and tests himself in the wild of Fenris, you know, goes without weapons, has to forge his own clothes, has to find his own food, has to do all this stuff, you know, and I guess, like, he is a Space Marine, but he's trying to do the trial of Fenris. He wants to prove himself that he can face the test of Morkai, the test of the Death God of the Space Wolves, and win. And it is through this that, you know, he does get a lot of change through his character. He sort of realises the things of this book he's got that's sort of talking and telling him about the Space Wolves is not everything, you know. You can read about this culture, but you have to actually experience the culture of the Space Wolves to truly grab it. And I think over the course of the story, it's definitely what changes about him, is realising that, you know, Space Wolves aren't something you can read from a book. They are something you have to be part of to really understand. And so what does this book do well? And like I said at the start, this book has that central plotline that we got from the start of Gate of Bones, of the Cardinal Bucaris and all that. And what this does and allows the book to do is it gives us a forward momentum with the book, and everything in the book is tied somehow, even just loosely, to that base thread, or is at least coming off of that and joining back up to that thread at the end, which I think is really important. Like, this just creates movement through the whole story, regardless of what part we're reading, and it makes the book tie in together. With these big sort of, I guess, galaxy-spanning novels and these big, massive storylines that they've done. You can have things like, you can look at things like the Beast Horizon, Horus Heresy, and all of that. There are times when the books maybe can focus on too much at once, and without that central plotline, they can become a bit disjointed. There's definitely been Heresy novels I thought this has happened to, and other stories as well in big series like this. But I think this does a really good job of keeping that central point and keeping everything tied to that and making sure that everything keeps moving together, which I think is really important. There's no faff in here. There's no part that doesn't make sense. I mean, yes, we don't really need to learn about all the things that happen with Gaius and all of that, or indeed the human aspects, the Fenrisians in there as well, but it all is tied together. It all has, a place and a part to play, and it all moves forward, which is good. And so, who would enjoy this story? I think Space Wolf fans would definitely get a kick out of this. If you like the Space Wolves, if you like the Valka Fenrika, the Sons of Fenris, I think you could definitely enjoy this. The vast majority of this book is focusing on Gaius and the First Wolves, and indeed interactions and first interactions of the Crusade with the Space Wolves. But it does have a solid adventure plot line following Gaius, which I think is really enjoyable. But there are definitely a lot of other parts involving the Historitors and Murdiah. And indeed, even some of the connections and some of the parts of the story where you're seeing, the Space Wolves interact with the Crusade for the first time might not make a lot of sense. There's definitely a lot of stuff with Njal Stormcaller, who's following and sort of joining in with that Bakara storyline. He's got information for it, and some of that might not make sense. So there's definitely parts of this that I don't think, if you've not read Gate of Bones, you would get or enjoy. It doesn't maybe explain them overly well, which is not a bad thing about the book at all. It is, part of an ongoing series, but unlike, say, Gate of Bones, where I think maybe the first one in Avenging Sun you could almost skip to read and then go straight into Gate of Bones, I think you'd need to read Gate of Bones before you read this. In summary, I think this is probably my favourite story in the series so far. I really enjoyed this, and honestly, I'm not a massive Space Wolves fan. I've built and played with a couple of Space Wolves models before. They're not exactly my favourite chapter in the world, but I really do like reading about them. In every story I've read about Space Wolves, they're always fun and interesting to read about. They're sort of savage, feral. Well, I guess they're not feral, are they? People like to see them as feral. It's that appearance of being these feral dogs when really they're just a pack of very smart, intelligent wolves. And like I said, the central plotline here, I think we've finally established that in the series. We've got, this enemy, this opposing force to the Crusade, and it really honed in on that, gave us the central plotline moving forward, which I think is going to serve extremely well. I'm excited to read and finish the next story. If you've read the Wolftime, though, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you've thought about this, what you've thought about the series so far. We'll have the review out for the next book soon, and that should get us up to date, waiting for the release of the next one, which is coming out at the Black Library Weekend sometime this year. And so that is the end of the video. We hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But also, if you'd like to, drop a comment down below letting us know what you enjoyed about the video. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here, we have a Discord server for Cinderful Gaming where we chat all things wargaming and indeed just chat a bunch of good friends all chatting there. It's really lovely. There's a link to that in the video's description. Also, if you'd like to help support the channel, the best ways to do that are linked in the video's description as well. We have our Patreon, YouTube members on there, which are great ways to help support the channel. But also, if you'd like to grab yourself some channel merch, we have Teespring and Ko-fi, both linked there as well. As a special thank you to our Patreons and YouTube members, we'd like to give them all a shout out for helping support the channel. So thank you to our Patreons: Christian Weir, Soren, Kenny Lowe, Outer Shot First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Thee, The Rising Ape, Q Dynamic, Anthony B, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater, Bloobs, Benjamin Swallows, Red Martin, Iron Grinch, Nuffs, and Nicholas Kolomos. And to our YouTube members: Green Roots Gaming, Ronya, Lochloric, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Ariana Edwards, Revenar, Pink Nico Fire, Robin Mankiller, Monty's Tabletop Terrain, John Castle, Davis Weir, James South, and James Tillman. Thank you all for supporting the channel. It means the absolute world and allows us to keep doing what we're doing. A special thanks as well to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork to the channel, and indeed to everyone who helps come and film battle reports or helps run the Discord server. You're all amazing. Thank you all so much. Stay safe, everyone. Stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.